Ever feel like you're missing out on how Seattle really works? Like what makes it tick? I'm
Right.
talking behind the scenes,
Yeah.
the nitty-gritty, you know?
The real deal.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing today.
Okay. Let's do it.
Diving deep, and I mean deep, into Seattle's City Council meeting minutes.
Oh, exciting.
We've got 3 meetings worth from July the 2nd, 9th, and 16th.
Okay.
And trust me, things get interesting.
Alrighty.
But before we, I don't know, spill the tea on all the budget stuff and the surprise votes and all that,
Yeah.
let's set the stage a little bit. What exactly are meeting minutes and why should we care about them?
Well, you can think of them like the official diary of, how decisions are made in Seattle. They document everything,
Mhm.
from who shows up to how they vote, public comments, to, those little details that you might not think are important, but actually tell you a lot about what's going on.
Totally. And while they might not be the most exciting thing you read all week.
Yeah, not exactly a thriller.
Exactly. They give us a really interesting look into what the city's priorities are, what people are fired up about, and maybe even some of the power struggles happening behind the scenes.
It's all there if you know where to look.
Exactly. So to kick things off, let's talk attendance. Who showed up at these meetings? Or, maybe more importantly, who didn't show up? Because believe it or not, even that can be kind of revealing.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, in high school when someone's suddenly absent on test day, you kind of start to wonder.
Right. Makes you think.
Exactly. So, for example, we noticed Councilmember Strauss was MIA on July 2nd,
Interesting.
but he was present for the other 2 meetings.
Okay.
And then both council members Moore and Morales excused themselves on July 16th.
Huh. So maybe just a scheduling thing.
Could be, or maybe they knew things were going to get a little heated on certain topics. We'll have to see.
Ooh, strategic absences. Okay, I'm intrigued. But we can't forget about the voices we do hear in the minutes. The public.
Oh, right.
That's right, that public comment section that's like a direct line to what matters most to people in Seattle.
Absolutely, and some folks are very passionate. We've got Kathleen Brose, Alex Zimmerman, Ariana Riley, Alberto Alvarez, Jason Ogolnik, all making repeat appearances.
Wow, so they're really dedicated.
Yeah, it's like they say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, or at least a few minutes at the microphone.
So true. Okay, so now let's talk money. Because, it's city council, right? Gotta talk budget.
Right, and we've got to follow the money.
So what kind of spending did we see in these meetings?
Well, each meeting had its share of claims, which are basically just requests for payment.
Hmm.
Think of it like the city's giant to-do list, fixing potholes, upgrading parks, that sort of thing.
Essential stuff.
Exactly. And they might seem routine, but they add up fast. Plus, it gives you a sense of their priorities.
And on July 2nd, things got particularly interesting with the housing levy. What was that all about?
This is a big one. The council approved a plan to raise a lot of money for affordable housing. It tells us they're really serious about tackling that issue.
Which makes sense considering, the housing crisis and everything.
Right, exactly. And there were some interesting notes from the committee about that, which we'll get into later.
Ooh, cliffhanger. Okay, I'm hooked.
But we can't forget about another big spending item, the transportation levy that passed on July 9th.
Oh, right. That one was huge.
Huge is right. We're talking $1.55 billion over 8 years. Is that enough to, repave every street in Seattle twice over?
Wow, that's a lot of asphalt. But for those of us who don't speak fluent budget, what does a levy actually mean for the average person?
Basically, it's a way for the city to raise extra money for specific projects, in this case, transportation. So that $1.55 billion will go towards things like road maintenance, bridge repairs, bike lanes, you name it. Basically anything that keeps Seattle moving.
Okay, so next time I'm stuck in traffic.
You'll know where the money's going or not going, depending on the state of things.
Or not going, right, exactly.
Right.
But it's interesting because it kind of shows you the long-term vision, right? Are they prioritizing cars, buses, bikes?
Right, what's the plan?
Exactly. What's the long game here? Okay, but before we get lost in a sea of spreadsheets,
Yes, let's move on.
let's talk about the real drama. The committee reports.
Okay.
This is where, the sausage gets made, right?
Behind the scenes.
This is where they're hashing out all the details before things go to a full vote.
Absolutely. The committees are where we see the nuances of policy unfold. Like on July 2nd, the Housing and Human Services Committee, they made a bunch of appointments to Community Roots Housing, which is that local organization focused on affordable housing.
So it seems like they're really putting their money where their mouth is.
Exactly. It all
Yeah.
connects, right?
Right, right.
So then on July 9th, the Transportation Committee, well, remember Councilmember Strauss?
Oh, yeah, our absent friend. What did he do?
He made quite an entrance.
Oh, he did. Tell me more.
He swoops in with this amendment to the transportation levy.
Okay, what did it say?
He single-handedly moved $20 million.
$20 million. Where from? Where to?
From road maintenance to the Burke-Gilman Trail.
Whoa, that's a big chunk of change. The Burke-Gilman Trail, that's that bike route, right?
The very same. Very popular, but also, bit controversial.
Right, right. So why do you think he did it? Was it strategic? Trying to, make his constituents happy? Or is he just really passionate about bikes?
That is the million-dollar question. And to really understand it, we need to dig a little deeper into Councilmember Strauss himself, his district, the whole political landscape. It's complicated.
Ooh, it sounds like it. But we're going to have to save that juicy investigation for part 2 of our deep dive. Don't touch that dial, folks. We'll be right back.
All right, we're back. And man, we're still reeling from that whole $20 million move. Talk about shaking things up, right?
Definitely got people's attention.
Big time. But it makes you think about the bigger picture of transportation in Seattle.
Right, exactly. You've got growth, you've got congestion, and then this big push for being green, being sustainable. Right, it's not just about paving roads anymore, it's about choices. And this move, it feels like a pretty clear statement. They're prioritizing cyclists and pedestrians, even if it ruffles some feathers along the way.
Yeah, there's always a trade-off, isn't there?
Always. But let's jump back to that July 16th meeting for a sec. There was another issue that caught our eye, something that's been causing a lot of, let's say, heated discussion in the city.
Oh, you mean the street racing?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the need for speed versus, everyone else's need for peace and quiet.
Yeah.
And safety, obviously.
Yeah, not a good mix.
Not at all. So the Public Safety Committee, they're trying to get a handle on this. They proposed a new ordinance, and it sounds like it has some teeth. Stiffer penalties for racers, even for people just watching.
Which, it seems pretty straightforward, right?
Totally. Who could possibly be in favor of street racing? But here's where it gets interesting. The minutes show that one council member actually voted against the ordinance.
Councilmember Morales.
The one and only. So what's the deal? Was it a protest vote? Maybe she sees some potential bias in how the ordinance would be applied?
It's possible.
Or maybe it's strategic, right? A way to appeal to a certain group of voters. Especially since, remember, she also skipped out on that meeting where they made all those housing appointments.
Yeah, it could be a pattern there.
Right. There's more to this story. I can feel it.
Well, one thing's for sure, Councilmember Morales, she's not afraid to go her own way, even if it means disagreeing with the rest of the council.
I kind of have to respect that.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that city politics, it's not just one big machine. There are real people with different opinions trying to figure out some really complicated stuff.
Totally. And sometimes that stuff hits really close to home, literally. Remember that thing we saw about a South Park flood?
Oh, yeah, that was kind of ominous, wasn't it? Buried in all those budget details.
Just casually dropped in there. But it really makes you think, right? Behind all these spreadsheets and meetings, there are real consequences for people's lives.
Exactly. Their homes, their safety, everything.
Speaking of which, remember those folks who kept showing up for public comment? Kathleen, Alex, Ariana.
Alberto, Jason Lerner.
Right, all of them. They were at every single meeting. Clearly they care a lot about how things are run in this city.
Yeah, they're definitely dedicated, but it makes you wonder, does it actually make a difference? Is anyone really listening?
That's the age-old question, right? How do you make your voice heard, especially when it feels like you're up against this giant system?
It's the dilemma of civic engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, there's no easy answer.
Yeah, I wish there was. But hey, maybe those repeat speakers, maybe they're on to something. Maybe just showing up week after week, that's a powerful statement in itself.
Right. It shows you care enough to keep coming back.
Exactly. Or maybe it inspires other people to speak up, to join the chorus,
That's what we need, more voices.
Exactly. But unfortunately, we've reached the end of our time for today's exploration.
But don't worry, we've got one more segment to go. We're going to try to answer some of these questions.
We'll unpack it all and hopefully leave you with some things to think about. Don't go anywhere.
All right, deep divers, we're back. It's the final stretch, and we've got a lot to unpack.
We've journeyed through budget proposals, uncovered some pretty interesting voting patterns.
Witnessed a major power move.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. But like any good mystery, we've got some loose ends to tie up.
Definitely. Like, remember Councilmember Strauss and that whole Burt Gilman Trail thing?
$20 million gone, just like that.
Exactly. So, will this bold move make him a hero to cyclists and pedestrians?
Or will it come back to bite him when those potholes don't get filled?
Right. It's a tough balance. Trying to please everyone often means pleasing no one.
That's politics for you.
Ain't it the truth? And then there's Councilmember Morales. That vote against the street racing ordinance. What do you make of that?
It's tough to say for sure. Maybe a calculated risk. Maybe she sees a different side of the issue.
Maybe both.
Entirely possible. It highlights how complex representation can be, trying to balance your own principles with the needs of your constituents.
It's a delicate dance for sure. Okay, and we can't forget that South Park flood thing. It just seems so ominous just dropped in there.
Right. Like a ticking time bomb hidden in a stack of budget papers.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that city government isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about real people, and sometimes those people are facing some serious challenges.
And they're looking to their elected officials for solutions.
Speaking of, remember those dedicated folks who kept showing up in the public comments section week after week? Do you think they're making a difference? It's hard to say. I mean, does anyone really feel heard when they're up against a system this big?
Right. It can feel pretty overwhelming.
Definitely. But maybe that's the point, right? Maybe just the act of showing up consistently, that's a form of power.
I like that. It's about persistence, about not giving up, even when it feels like you're shouting into the void.
Exactly.
So, what's the takeaway here for our listeners?
Well, I think it's this. Don't be afraid to dig deeper.
Yeah.
Those city council meeting minutes, they might seem boring, maybe even a little intimidating, but they hold a wealth of information.
They're a window into how decisions are made, how power works in our city.
And who knows, you might just find yourself inspired to get involved, to make your own voice heard.
Because every voice matters. Well said. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. But remember, this is just the beginning. There are countless stories hidden within those meeting minutes, just waiting to be uncovered. So stay curious, Seattle, and we'll see you next time.